What's up everybody? Today I'm going to be showing you how I change brake pads quick and easy. So just to do a quick rundown on the brake system in case you're not familiar with it. This is the rotor, this is the part that the brake pads actually apply the pressure to. This is the caliper, this is what squeezes the brake pads, and then the brake pads themselves are on the inside here. That's what we're going to replace. As far as the brake pads go, on mine, I'm starting to hear some noise come from the brake pads when they're pressed. So that noise that I'm hearing, what it comes from is on the brake pads, there's actually this little metal gauge. Hopefully you can see that, but it pokes out just enough into the brake pad material to where that starts rubbing on the rotor when you push your brakes, and it creates a noise. It sounds like a metal on metal noise. When you start hearing that noise, you know that you're going to need to change your brake pads. So on most cars that I've changed the brake pads on, it's very similar. There might be a few minor differences, but overall it's very similar. To get the caliper off, there's just two bolts in the back here. And you want to be careful. There's two sets of bolts. This is a bolt that is part of the actual caliper. That's not what you want to take off. You want to remove this one that attaches the caliper to the steering knuckle. Another thing you want to watch when you're changing your brake pads is this is the brake line here. And when we pull this caliper off, we don't want it to just hang by the brake line. That's going to put pressure on it. You could cause damage to it. So typically what I do is I just zip tie the caliper up to the spring and let it hang there. So I'll go ahead and get these bolts off this. And don't think that you need to have, an impact gun to do this. I've done this many times with just wrenches and sockets and stuff. So as I mentioned, I usually just grab like a zip tie. Usually one's not quite long enough. So I'll just connect two of them together. So now the caliper itself is just hanging there. So as you can see now, the brake pads are in here in the caliper. To get those off, it's usually pretty easy. I usually just push them out. So once again, this is the wear marker that makes the noise. This one actually hasn't been rubbing yet, but it's on that passenger side that I'm having the noise. Now if you compare the thickness of the old pad, which is worn out, compared to the new pad, this new pad's almost a 1/4 inch thicker, and that's probably similar on the other side too. So that means there's almost a 1/2 inch of space that we don't have in the caliper. So what you actually have to do, push this cylinder that's in the caliper back so that we can fit these in. So typically what I use to compress this cylinder in here is just a large C-clamp. I can't find mine at the moment. This is just like a wood clamp. I'm going to try it, see if I can get it to work. So this is working for me. Typically the bigger the brakes are, the more problem they give me when I was trying to push the cylinder back in. And I've had some that get stuck pretty good, but just keep working at it and you'll get them pushed back in. Once you got that cylinder pushed in, it's just a matter of putting your new brake pads in. So at auto parts stores, you can buy brake grease for like $1 or $2, and you can just put it on some of these little components where your brake pads touch and move around a little bit. That's going to help it so they don't get rusted in there and so that they don't get stuck or anything like that. You don't need a lot of it, just a little bit. I usually just like to apply it with a Q-tip, and then I can get it in there kind of accurately. Don't want to spread grease all over your brakes. That won't be good for you. Now we just need to simply put the new brake pads in. So the new brake pads are in the caliper, so all we need to do now is bolt it back up. If you haven't compressed that cylinder in the brake caliper enough. When you go to put it back onto the rotor, the gap's going to be too small and you won't be able to fit it. So it's pretty important to make sure that you get that cylinder compressed as much as you possibly can. So I'll go ahead and cut my caliper free here from the zip tie. Make sure you're holding it so it doesn't just drop. And then see if I can get this on. So one other quick thing that you want to make sure you do is to pump your brakes before you start driving this thing, because you've compressed those brake calipers, the piston in there, there's not going to be any pressure in them. So you're going to want to pump the brakes a few times to build the pressure back up in those, or else if you just start driving, you're not going to have any brakes for the first couple pumps. These are pretty new rotors. I changed these when I bought the car. A lot of times you want to change your pads and your rotors at the same time if there is, you know, warping issues or odd wear patterns, things like that. These didn't really have too much of an issue. Maybe I should have changed them at the same time. You know, it's going to save you a little time in the long run doing it that way also. Hopefully that video was helpful. For more videos, please click my logo to subscribe, and as always, remember to like and share the video. Thanks.